Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Cheers to 10 wonderful years, she said, raising her glass high, her voice gliding through the candlelit rooftop like a rehearsed melody. Everyone applauded. I didn't, because her lover was sitting at the table next to mine. Yeah. He was right there. Legs crossed, smug grin, holding the same champagne flute I paid for, toasting the same decade he helped her destroy. But let's rewind. No, I'm not going to give you a cute backstory. You don't need to know how we met in college or that I used to write her stupid little love notes before her exams. What matters is this. I found out she was cheating, and instead of confronting her in private, I decided to make her remember the moment forever. I knew about him for 2 weeks. His name's Clay. He's not even interesting. Average job, average car. Lives in a rented condo with gray carpet and zero personality. But apparently, he has one thing I don't, the nerve to sleep with a married woman and then show up to her anniversary dinner like he's part of the family. She told me it was going to be a small celebration. Just close friends and a few from work. I played along. I ordered custom menus with our initials on them. I rented the same rooftop where I proposed. I even wrote a speech. Not one I intended to read, but one I wanted her to expect. As guests arrived, I watched them hug her, compliment her dress, laugh at her little jokes. Then Clay walked in, and she froze, just for a second, then smiled too wide and acted like it was nothing. That was the moment. That flicker of guilt buried under performance. That 1 second of oh no, before she snapped back into everything's fine. I memorized that face. She spent the whole night pretending. Pretending she loved me. Pretending she was grateful. Pretending she hadn't erased a decade of our lives with hotel keycards and 3 texts that started with, "Are you up?" So when she stood, glass raised and said, 10 wonderful years, I stood too, smiled, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "And you ruined them by bringing your lover here. No yelling, no accusations, just facts, dressed in the same suit I wore the day we married." She dropped her glass. It shattered. People gasped. Clay blinked like he'd been slapped. And I sat back down, calmly, like the storm had already passed, because for me it had. What happened after that? You won't believe who defended her. And you really won't believe who didn't. The sound of that glass shattering still rings in my ears. It wasn't just crystal breaking. It was the illusion. The carefully curated image of a perfect couple, exploding in front of 24 guests who didn't know whether to look at me or stare down at their steak. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just calmly sat down, picked up my water, and took a slow sip. Across the table, Clay looked like he wanted to disappear into his overpriced blazer. His hand was shaking, and for the first time that night he wasn't grinning. My wife, Amanda, looked like someone had just yanked the floor out from under her. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I watched her chest rise and fall, fast and uneven. It was the first honest emotion I'd seen from her in months. Then came the whispers. My cousin leaned over to his wife and muttered something. My sister narrowed her eyes and looked between Amanda and Clay. Her dad stood up like he was about to say something but sat down just as fast, probably realizing there was nothing that wouldn't make this worse. Amanda tried to laugh it off. "He's just joking, right? Curtis, honey, that was a joke, wasn't it?" Her voice was trembling, brittle like glass already cracked. I turned to her slowly, looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Tell them how you met Clay. Go ahead. Was it in the office? Or the hotel bar across from your weekly conferences?" Clay pushed back from the table. "I didn't know," he started, but I cut him off. "Didn't know she was married?" I asked, voice low but cutting. "Strange. You shook my hand 3 months ago at our 4th of July barbecue. Remember that? You even complimented the ribs I grilled, while your fingers still smelled like her perfume." That's when the silence turned into chaos. Someone let out a shocked, "Oh my God." My aunt stood up and grabbed her purse. Clay stood too, fumbling for his jacket. Amanda just sat there, frozen, like she'd been unplugged. Her best friend tried to say something, maybe defend her, but I raised a hand and said, Save it. She told you she'd end it before tonight, didn't she? And you said nothing. You could feel it, the shift. People were starting to realize they weren't just witnessing a marriage collapse. They were part of it, part of the lie. I hadn't told anyone before tonight, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted them to see it with their own eyes. No denials, no damage control. Then Amanda stood. Her face was blotchy, her eyes wide and wild. You planned this, she hissed. You humiliated me on purpose. I nodded once. Yes, and you earned every second. She stormed out. Clay followed like a dog without a leash. The rest of the room sat in stunned silence. No one moved. The waiter came to refill a glass, looked around, and quietly backed away. I sat alone at the head of the table. 10 years of my life laid out like a crime scene. But I wasn't done yet, because when I got home that night, I opened her laptop, and what I found there made everything else, even this, look like a warm-up. I got home before she did. Of course I did. She had to do her damage control. Calm Clay down. Probably cry to her friends about how I ambushed her. I didn't care. I had no interest in listening to her script. I'd already seen the truth play out on her face when I dropped the bomb. That expression, that was real. The rest? Theater. I walked into our house like it wasn't ours anymore. The same living room we spent winters in, the couch where we used to fall asleep watching terrible shows, the photos still hanging on the walls like mocking souvenirs of a life that no longer existed. I didn't stop to look at any of it. I went straight to her home office. I'd never gone through her stuff before. I was the kind of husband who respected boundaries, trusted space. God, how stupid does that sound now? But that night, I didn't care about lines anymore. There was nothing left to protect. I opened her laptop, no password. She always said she had nothing to hide, right? That part, at least, was true. She didn't even bother hiding it. I clicked through folders like a man disarming a bomb. And then I found it. It wasn't even cleverly named. Just a folder on the desktop called Personal. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Not nudes, nothing explicit. Just pictures of them together. Hotels. Airports. A weekend cabin. Smiling selfies in robes. A wine tasting in Napa. She told me she was at a leadership retreat that weekend. I zoomed in on one photo and saw the date, 2 weeks before our 9th anniversary. They'd been together that long. At least. There were voice notes, too. One was her laughing, whispering, I swear, he still has no idea. It's almost cute. My stomach turned. Another one. His voice this time said, You sure he won't show up early? And she replied, Curtis? No, he's too busy trying to impress me with anniversary crap. He doesn't pay attention. I can't even describe what it felt like listening to that. It was like watching a video of yourself getting robbed. But the burglars wearing your wedding ring. I sat there for I don't know how long, just staring. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow, like everything inside me had been gutted and replaced with static. Then I found something worse. There was a spreadsheet. Yeah, a literal spreadsheet. She was tracking excuses, notes, dates, lies. There was a column labeled Cover Story, with entries like, Team Dinner HR, Mom not feeling well, Curtis has late meeting, use if needed. She had a whole system, a built-in alibi network. And me? I was just a footnote in the margins of her little game. That was when the anger came. Not loud or wild. Cold. Controlled. I closed the laptop, took out my phone, and started taking screenshots of everything. I sent them all to a private drive. No rage texts. No, how could you? Just backup. Because I knew what was coming next. She'd try to spin it. She'd cry. Apologize. Blame stress, confusion, say it was just emotional, not physical. But this wasn't one mistake. It was architecture. Pre-planned. Engineered. Executed. So I waited. And when she finally walked through that door, her mascara smeared, her voice hoarse, and her keys shaking in her hand, I didn't yell. I simply said, We're going to talk now, and you're not going to lie, because I already know everything. She froze when she heard my voice, her hand still on the doorknob. Her purse slipping from her shoulder like gravity had just turned up on her. The silence between us wasn't just awkward. It was heavy, dense, like a storm cloud trying to fit inside a living room. I watched her carefully, not moving, not saying another word, just letting her stew in it. I wanted her to feel it. Not confusion, not fear, certainty. The kind that makes your stomach drop because you know the lie won't work this time. "I don't know what you think you saw," she finally muttered, her voice a little shaky but still laced with that same old arrogance. That smug edge she always used when she was cornered, like she was one clever sentence away from flipping the whole thing around on me. But I wasn't that Curtis anymore. Not tonight. "I saw your folder, Amanda." I didn't even have to raise my voice. The photos, the recordings, the spreadsheet. I saw everything. And that was it. The bluff was gone. She didn't cry. Not at first. She just stared. Like her mind was scrolling through every possible version of this moment she'd imagined. And none of them matched what was actually happening. Maybe she thought I'd scream, throw things. Maybe she hoped I'd sob and beg her to explain. But I didn't. I just sat on the edge of the couch, my hands folded like a man waiting for someone to own what they did. "You went through my stuff?" she asked, as if that was the violation here. I laughed. Actually laughed, and it sounded so foreign in my own ears I barely recognized it. "You planned hotel weekends behind my back, used my name in your lies, wrote cover stories next to my work schedule, and you're mad I opened your laptop?" That's when she dropped the act. Tears. Real ones this time, or at least convincing. She dropped onto the armchair across from me like she'd just lost her strength. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. It started out as something stupid. I felt invisible, Curtis. You stopped looking at me. My jaw clenched. I'd heard this script before, from friends who got cheated on, from TV shows trying to justify selfishness. But hearing it from her, knowing what I'd seen on that screen, made my blood run cold. "You mean I stopped chasing you while you were out sleeping with a man who looks like a discount catalog model?" I snapped. "I spent the last 2 years trying to hold us together while you were booking spa weekends with your coworker." She tried to talk again, but I stood up. I needed to move. Sitting still was making me feel like I was choking on air. "You lied to everyone," I continued. "To me, to your parents, to our friends. You dragged that man into our anniversary dinner and toasted to 10 wonderful years like it was all a game. And you know what's worse? You were proud of how well you hid it." She stood up too, slowly, as if we were about to face off in some domestic duel. "What do you want me to say, Curtis? That I regret it? That I hate myself? Fine, I do. But where does that leave us?" It was the first honest question she'd asked all night. I walked past her toward the hallway, but before I disappeared into our bedroom, I said, "It leaves you here, alone, and me, somewhere far from this mess." But the truth? I had nowhere to go. Not yet, because what I found next on her phone, not the laptop but her phone, rewrote everything I thought I knew about the affair. There was someone else. Couldn't sleep that night. After the confrontation, Amanda didn't try to follow me. She stayed in the living room while I sat in our bedroom, door locked, lights off, staring at the ceiling like it might give me answers. But there were no answers, only more questions. The kind that fester. The kind that keep you wide awake even when your body's screaming to shut down. I should have been done. I should have walked away that night and never looked back. But there was something gnawing at me, a sense that I hadn't seen everything yet. So around 3 a.m., I grabbed her phone from the charger in the kitchen. It was the first time I'd ever touched it without asking. That tells you everything about how naive I was. No passcode. Same arrogance as her laptop, like she truly believed I'd never look. Like she was so far ahead of me it didn't matter what I saw. The messages with Clay were still there, of course. The same smug, disgusting exchanges. But I wasn't looking for him anymore. I wanted to know what else was hiding behind the curtain. And then I found the name Eli, not saved in her contacts, just a number. But the texts, God, the texts. The first one I opened was from 3 months ago. Eli, Same hotel as last time. I'll be there at 7. Don't wear anything boring. Her reply, Curtis thinks I'm at my mom's. I've got all night. I nearly dropped the phone. My hands were shaking, not from shock this time, but from rage that had nowhere to go. I scrolled through more messages. The tone was different than with Clay. Clay was flirty, juvenile. Eli was darker, more controlling. He sent photos of receipts from places they went like he was keeping score. He referenced things I didn't understand. Jokes, phrases, names I'd never heard before. Then I found a voice message from her. She sounded breathless, almost panicked. I hate how you make me feel. I hate that I still come back. I hate that you know I will. Felt like I was listening to a stranger. I didn't recognize her voice. Not like that. Not broken, not desperate, not full of whatever sick attachment she had to this Eli person. I dug deeper, trying to find out who he was. And then I saw it, one photo. Not of him, of them, together, in our backyard. I zoomed in. His face was turned just enough. And my stomach dropped. Because I knew him. Eli wasn't some random fling. He wasn't a coworker or a guy she met at a conference. He was my mechanic. The same guy who serviced our cars for the last 4 years. The guy who I used to bring coffee to when I picked up Amanda's SUV. He called me buddy. And now all I could see in my mind was that photo. His hand resting on her waist like it belonged there. This wasn't an affair. This was an ecosystem. A network of lies so layered it made me question every late meeting. Every girl's trip. Every time she said, "Can you pick up the dry cleaning? I'm running late." And it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that my life had become her cover story. I sat there, staring at the screen, until the sun came up. The birds were chirping. The light started crawling through the blinds. And still I couldn't move. I wasn't just humiliated. I was deconstructed. Everything I was, husband, provider, best friend, had been twisted into a role in her theater of deception. When Amanda knocked on the door that morning, I didn't answer. Because I wasn't ready. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't come out of the room until well past noon. Amanda had stopped knocking after the first few tries, probably assuming I was asleep, or maybe hoping I'd just walk out and pretend like nothing happened. But pretending was her specialty, not mine. I was done being the naive husband who took every excuse at face value. Done nodding along while she sold me polished lies with a smile. I walked into the kitchen, slow and steady, like a man heading to war barefoot. She was at the table, staring at her coffee like it held the answer to all this. She looked up at me with red eyes and swollen cheeks, but I wasn't moved. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. "I know about Eli," I said plainly. Her head snapped up so fast, it was almost cartoonish. Clay wasn't the only one. There were others, weren't there? Her mouth opened, but she didn't speak right away. That hesitation, that split-second pause, it told me everything before she could lie. "How long?" I asked. "How many?" "I don't know," she whispered. That should have crushed me. Didn't. It just confirmed what I already suspected. There wasn't a number. There wasn't a reason. There was just her, doing whatever she wanted while I was busy holding up the illusion of a marriage. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I calmly pulled out a folder I'd printed that morning. Screenshots, copies of texts, pictures of receipts she thought would vanish into the void. I laid it on the table in front of her and said, "This is the truth, and now I'm going to decide what to do with it." Her lips trembled. "Curtis, please." But I cut her off. "No, you had your time. This is mine now." That afternoon, I made 4 phone calls. First was to my lawyer. Told him everything, every grim detail. Asked him about divorce, about protecting myself financially. I had nothing fancy, no fortune, but what I did have, I wasn't letting her take it after she shattered everything else. Second was to Amanda's parents. I didn't sugarcoat a single word. Told her mother exactly who Clay and Eli were. Told her father how their daughter had built an entire alternate life behind my back. They were silent. Her mom cried. Her dad hung up. That was fine with me. The third call was to our shared bank. I froze the joint account, transferred my paycheck to a new one. She wasn't going to use my money to gas up Eli's truck or book another cozy getaway with Clay. Not anymore. And the fourth call was to Eli himself. I didn't threaten him. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, "I know everything. You serviced my car for 4 years while sleeping with my wife. I hope it was worth it because from now on, every time you see my name, it'll be on a legal document." He hung up. I expected that. Cowards usually do. That night, I slept on the couch. She asked me to talk. I said nothing. She tried to apologize again, but her voice sounded like static to me. Words with no meaning. The walls felt heavy with all the things I couldn't say. But I wasn't going to fall apart in front of her. She didn't get to see me broken anymore. I sat there, thinking about all the time I wasted trying to impress someone who saw me as a placeholder. The anniversaries. The late-night drives to bring her soup when she was sick. The little notes I'd leave in her bag. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. She stole years from me and handed them to strangers in cheap motel rooms. But I had one thing she never expected, clarity. And I was going to use it. I used to be terrified of people finding out. The idea that our friends, our families, our coworkers might whisper behind my back about how Amanda cheated, how I couldn't keep my wife happy. That fear used to keep me paralyzed. But now, I wanted them to know. I needed them to see it for what it was. Not because I wanted revenge. No, I wasn't interested in hurting her. I just wasn't going to carry her shame on my back anymore. I was done protecting someone who turned my loyalty into a leash. The first message I sent was to our group chat, the same one she used to post anniversary selfies and blessed life quotes in. There were 16 people in there, people who'd been at our wedding, who had watched us laugh and pretend. I attached a zip file with all the screenshots, labeled it for context, and typed exactly 2 sentences. "Thank you all for coming to our anniversary dinner. For those wondering why I said what I said, here's why." Within minutes, the notifications exploded. At least half of them left the group without a word. The others responded with a mix of disbelief, sympathy, and pure shock. My best friend Ethan called me, and the first thing he said was, "Tell me this isn't a joke." When I confirmed it wasn't, he was quiet for a long time before saying, "I should have known something was off when she kept posting those vague quotes about finding yourself. Bro, I'm sorry." That was the phrase I kept hearing. I'm sorry. Like they were grieving with me. And maybe they were. Or maybe they were just stunned that Amanda, the one who seemed like she had it all together, had been living a lie so deep it needed a file system to manage it. I didn't stop there. I sent a private message to Clay's wife. Yeah, he had a wife. 2 kids. Photos all over his social media of beach trips, birthday parties, #FamilyFirst captions. I knew it would destroy her, but I also knew she deserved the truth more than anyone. I sent her the screenshots, told her I wasn't looking to hurt her, just wanted her to know what he was doing behind her back. She replied hours later with one word, "Thank you." As for Eli, I didn't contact him again. I didn't need to, because 2 days after my message, his name disappeared from the auto shop's website. No longer employed, it said. Whether he quit or got fired, I didn't care. He didn't get to hide behind a hood and wrench anymore. Amanda, meanwhile, tried to keep up appearances. She posted a photo of a sunset with some cryptic caption about growth through pain. Couldn't even be mad. It was just pathetic. Like watching someone polish a sinking ship. She finally broke the silence between us a few days later. Sat across from me on the couch and asked, "Do you feel better now that everyone knows?" I looked at her and said, "I feel lighter." She blinked like I'd slapped her. "You humiliated me," she whispered. "No," I said, leaning forward, my voice steady. "You humiliated yourself. I just stopped covering for you." That night, she packed a bag and left. No dramatic speech, no final kiss goodbye, just the sound of the front door clicking shut behind her. And honestly, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad either. I just felt clean, for the first time in months. But the story wasn't over, because the morning after she left, I got a message from someone I never expected. The message came in just after 9 a.m. It was from a name I barely remembered, Marcus, an old college roommate of Amanda's from way back in the day. We'd met a few times at reunions and holiday parties. Quiet guy, thoughtful, always seemed like he was watching the room instead of being in it. His text simply read, "Hey Curtis, I saw what happened. Thought you should know. I warned her years ago that she'd lose everything if she kept playing games." I stared at the screen, unsure what he meant. We ended up talking on the phone later that afternoon. Turns out, Marcus had been close enough to Amanda in college to see the patterns long before I ever came along. The lies, the manipulating, the thrill she got from making people chase her, only to push them away and pretend she was the victim. He told me, "She always needed attention more than love. And you gave her love, stability. She didn't know what to do with that." Strangely, it wasn't bitter to hear. It was freeing. In the weeks that followed, my world didn't fall apart. It got quieter, simpler. Amanda didn't fight me on the divorce. Maybe because she knew she didn't have a leg to stand on. Maybe because she was already setting up her next act with someone else. Either way, I didn't chase her. I didn't try to rewrite the ending. I started sleeping better. I joined a gym. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected while I was too busy trying to be the husband she pretended to want. I even started volunteering on weekends at a local history center. A weird passion I always put off because Amanda thought it was boring. Turned out I loved it. And one night, while walking home, I passed a little bookstore with a quote on the chalkboard out front. "When you finally stop chasing what's breaking you, the healing begins." I stood there and just smiled, because for once the timing felt right. So here I am, telling you all this not because I want sympathy, but because someone out there might be sitting at the edge of their couch just like I was, wondering if they're crazy for feeling like something's off. You're not crazy. And if the truth hurts, it means you're still alive. Still in the fight. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm just finally honest with myself. And that feels better than anything she ever gave me. Thanks for sticking with me. If you've ever had a moment in your life where everything cracked open, but you came out stronger on the other side, drop it in the comments. We want to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more real stories, real emotions, and real people unmasking the lies.